Good afternoon and welcome to News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. This is the Vince Coglianese Show. I'm not Vince. No, I'm Vince's producer, Corey Inganamort. I work with Vince every day on this show. You can hear me on Saturdays, 4 to 7 on this great network. But this is my first time in the captain's chair filling in for Vince. He's taken some well-earned, well-deserved time off. Hopefully he is unplugged from the news today. Knowing him, he's not, though. I have a feeling that he's not. But it's my great honor to join you today, the greatest listening audience in the history of listening audiences. We have a jam-packed show today for you. Bunch of great guests coming up. At 3:30, John Daniel Davidson will join us. He's from the Federalist. We're going to talk about this prisoner exchange that took place yesterday. We're hearing a lot about who returned home, but who did we actually give up? Who are these Russian people that are heading back home? Will they cause us harm in the future? We'll ask John Daniel Davidson about that. Sean Kennedy will be here he's the president of the Virginians for Safe Communities. He's here at 4 o'clock. We're going to talk about a lot of migrant crime taking place in Northern Virginia. What's going on there? We're going to ask him about it. EJ Antoni, the great EJ Antoni, comes by at 4:30. It's a new jobs report. It's not looking so good. EJ's the in-house economist of the Vince Coglianese Show, also from the Heritage Foundation. We'll ask him to dig deeper into these numbers. And finally, 5 o'clock, Ryan Gerdusky. He's the founder of the 1776 Project Political Action Committee. He's a brilliant political mind. We're going to talk to him about the polls, the state of the election, where things are heading. Do you feel a little bit nervous? I do. Should we? We'll ask Ryan. And we'll talk to you, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Got anything on your mind? Anything you want to get off your chest? You want to learn how the show is produced? Ask me anything. I'll give you all the behind-the-scenes details. Would love for your contributions today. So Kamala Harris, about an hour and a half, she unofficially became the presumptive Democrat nominee. It's not official until Monday. They'll do a roll call online through Zoom, and then it's official. She's the Democrat nominee. But about an hour and a half ago, she secured via a Zoom call the majority of delegates. They will be voting for her. And a reminder, no voter voted for Kamala Harris to win this primary. She won exactly 0 delegates. She won 0 delegates. They just did a vote virtually with no transparency. She sat down with 0 interviews so far, 0 press conferences. It's been 12 days since the coup has been completed by Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. You know, the coup was complete, and 12 days later, we still haven't heard from her in an unscripted moment, except for once last night. And I'll get to that audio in a little bit. And boy, it's just another example of why they're hiding her. Boy, when she gets off script, it is not good. And her campaign has been giving statements disavowing the left-wing position she took back in 2020. The media is doing all the work for her. She's just trying to basically emulate Joe Biden in 2020 and run a basement campaign. Will it work in this condensed schedule? Maybe it will. I mean, she's only the Democrat nominee officially as of Monday. She's going to get a VP bump next week. 2 weeks after that is the DNC convention. She'll probably get a little bump after that. And then Pennsylvania starts early voting 4 weeks after that. This is all part of their plan. They want to have her exposed to the public as little as possible. Remember, in 2020, she didn't even make it to Iowa. Nobody wanted to vote for her. And in that process, people really couldn't actually vet her because she wasn't popular enough for people to see. And now she's been the vice president for the past 3.5 years, but nobody's really paying attention to her because Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. And believe it or not, Joe Biden maybe makes more sense than she does. So they're hiding her. They've been hiding her. But here's Kamala Harris in her call with delegates just a little while ago. She is proud to be the presumptive nominee of the United States. She says it was truly a people-powered campaign. Reminder, nobody voted for this woman.
We all approach our campaign with the same spirit, including that this is truly a people-powered campaign. And I would not be on this call right now and with you all were it not for your support and your trust, for which I am deeply grateful. I am honored to be the presumptive Democratic nominee for President of the United States, and I will tell you the tireless work of our delegates, our state leaders, and staff has been pivotal in making this moment possible. And your dedication cannot be overstated. Your dedication to our country. You know, I know we all feel this way so strongly. We love our country. We believe in the promise of America. And that's what this campaign is about. So, of course, I will officially accept your nomination next week once the virtual voting period is closed. But already I'm happy to know that we have enough delegates to secure the nomination.
There we go. The coup is just about complete. It'll be officially complete on Monday. And then she goes on, blabble, blabble, blabble. And by the way, you can tell that this is completely scripted. She's reading, because there's no video of this. She's reading. If it was off the cuff, she'd be speaking in circles, how she's proud to have the delegates because the delegates are what make me proud, and I'm proud to have the delegates. They make me proud. That's what she normally sounds like. She's reading, but there's no video of this. We can't actually see her in an unscripted moment. She asks, what country do we want to live in? A country of freedom, compassion, or rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate?
What kind of country do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate?
Now, a reminder, when Kamala speaks about freedom, she's the one who wants to take your guns away. All right? She previously said she wants to ban fracking, but now the media is covering for her. Oh, she changed her mind, even though she's never actually had to answer for that. She talks about a country of compassion. It's not compassionate to keep our borders wide open when hundreds of thousands of people are dying from fentanyl. And poor women like Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungare or Rachel Morens are being killed by that open border. That's not compassionate. And then she talks about the rule of law. Kamala Harris promoted the Minnesota Freedom Fund. That was a fund to bail criminals, literal criminals who broke the law while they were rioting in support of George Floyd. Reminder, billions of dollars of damage was done during those riots. Cities needed to be completely rebuilt. And she claims that she's the rule of law candidate? Yeah, I don't think so.
And the beauty of our democracy is we each, every one of us, has the power to answer that question. And that is why I say and know the power is with the people. So here's the bottom line. I say to all the friends on the call, we are going to win this election, and it is going to take all of us, whether it is making calls, connecting with our communities, engaging online, or even talking with people where we go every day, whether it be to the grocery store or our church. We are going to talk with people about the fact that we are all in this together and we stand together. And so let's let folks know that our campaign is about the future, and it's about an expansion of rights and freedoms and for the opportunity of everyone to not just get by, but to get ahead.
To get ahead. I guess she didn't see the jobs report this morning. People are suffering. Get ahead. Yeah, right. We're falling behind. People are $1 trillion in credit card debt right now. And she's touting this record that's what she wants to promote. Yeah, I don't think so. And you can see that she was definitely reading from a script because it actually sounded like it made sense, or at least the sentences were English. For the first time since the coup was completed 12 days ago, as I said, she hasn't taken a press conference, hasn't answered a question. We'll get into this National Association of Black Journalists conference, which she decided not to show up for when she would have just been thrown softball questions. But for the very first time since the coup was complete, she did talk about the hostages or the prisoners who were released from Russia yesterday. She was on a tarmac, and take a listen to this audio. And this is exactly why the White House and her campaign is hiding her as much as they can, just hoping they can get to November 5th while still running a basement cam like Joe Biden did in 2020. It was successful for him in 2020. Will it be for Kamala in 2024? It sure as hell better not be.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. This is an incredible day.
Wow. The importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy. Did you get all that? You feel inspired by Kamala? By the way, I'm still thinking of a nickname for Kamala. If you want to call into the program and recommend something, 888-630-9625. I'm thinking Kamala because Kamala's a commie, or Kanmala, a caller the other day suggested. Kamalama ding dong, kama chameleon. What should I nickname her? I'm leaning towards Kamala. 888-630-9625. Let me hear your best suggestions. Let's have some fun on a Friday. But there she was, fully demonstrating why her campaign is not allowing her to speak to the press, because she speaks in circles. That's what she does. So the left is trying to somehow label us as weird. J.D. Vance is weird. He's actually quite a normal guy. He's got a great family. He watches football. He's just a guy with a beard who honestly seems like a lot of fun to hang out with. I'd like to meet J.D. Vance someday. But they've labeled us weird because campaigns are based not necessarily on policy all the time. It's like one-liners, zingers, whatever sticks, and weird resonates because, well, we all know that we're not weird, but when someone calls someone weird, they don't necessarily associate that with themselves. Oh, it's someone else who's weird. It's someone else who's weird. So they're very fine with throwing that insult. We need to label Kamala Harris something. And, the policy is not necessarily getting through because people aren't asking her about it. And we can talk about policy all we want, but we know the mainstream media isn't going to cover it. She's never asked about why she wants to ban guns. I mean, the other day she was saying we need to stop wishing people Merry Christmas just because, this was back in 2017, just because she wanted to get amnesty for illegal aliens who were here. She's never had to be asked about her flip-flops on guns and all this kind of stuff. And even if Donald Trump and J.D. Vance just push the issue and keep it going, the media is not going to cover it. So we really need to label Kamala for what she is. Donald Trump called her Lion Kamala. I think it was in North Carolina rally the other day. And that just doesn't fit. He's already used that one. Yes, she's lying, but that doesn't really rile people up. He used that for Ted Cruz, and now they're best buddies. But we need to label Kamala for what she is. She's a phony. She's a phony. And the RNC has leaned into radically liberal. So every time you say Kamala, you got to say radically liberal Kamala so it sticks. Phony Kamala. I'm telling you, we need to label her for what she is because the policy is just not getting through right now. And she may just be able to skate through November without ever having to ask for it. She's a phony for not attending this National Association of Black Journalists conferences the other day. I want to get into that right after this break. All right, the phone lines are lighting up. A lot of people want to weigh in on nicknames for Kamala. Let's go to Mike and Burke. He's on line 7. Mike has a suggestion. Mike, what should we nickname Kamala?
Okay, I got 3 choices for you here. You got K Marks, M-A-R-X, or you can call her Kamarksala. But, 2 syllables is the rule for call signs. Or, and I don't want to disparage Willy Wonka, but if you want to, you could call her Willy Wonker, since that's how she really started to get into politics and move to the top. So it depends on how crude you want to get.
I see what you did there. I like K Marksala. I might have to use that one. Do you mind if I borrow that?
Not a problem. I like K Marks myself, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Let's go to Bob in College Park. He's on line 5 right now. Bob, what's your suggestion?
I like Kamala Seuss, because she keeps speaking in rhymes and repeats the same words. Because children, in children's books, they always have the same thing over and over and over again so that kids can get used to the vocabulary. So that's what she seems to do. We're going to the moon. When we go to the moon, we're going to go to the moon. And then So.
I like that one, too.
I do. Yeah. I like green eggs and ham. I do. Yeah, really.
Yeah, yesterday she said, this is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy. She's got a few favorite words there, doesn't she?
And that's what I'm saying. So that's what children love. In children's books, you'll see the same word over and over, but that's on purpose so children get used to reading and seeing the same word in different contexts. And maybe she should write children's books. I don't know.
Yeah, she does speak to us like children. That's for sure. What's funny too about this transcript that she said yesterday on the tarmac, Kamala headquarters, they actually changed. They typed out what she said, but they changed all of it. So what I just read to you and what you just heard earlier in the program, this is how Kamala headquarters on Twitter. This is what they said. She said, this is an extraordinary day, and I'm very thankful for our president. This is an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. So they just completely changed what she said. They even posted the video so we can compare and contrast, but they just tried to erase her words from existence. But I appreciate that, Bob. Thanks for that suggestion.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks.
All right, let's go to Alex in Kansas City, Missouri. Thanks for listening in Kansas City. He's on line 6. Alex, welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for sitting in. You guys got a great show. I hate missing it. A day without the show is like a day without sunshine.
We try to be that sunshine every day. Thank you, Alex. What's your suggestion today? What should Kamala be called?
Well, I don't know why no one's picked up on it yet, but in Spanish, I'm fluent in Spanish, and que mala is how horrid, how bad, how dumb. In Spanish, que mala que es. So there you go. Just mop your name.
Kamala. Oh, you said that so well. I'm going to try to practice that. All right. Well, that would make a lot of sense to me. Alex, you're the man. Thanks so much for calling. I appreciate that. Coming up next, we got John Daniel Davidson. He's from the Federalist. We're going to talk about that prisoner swap that took place yesterday. Welcome back to News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. This is the Vince Coglianese Show. I'm Corey Inganamort, filling in for my friend Vince today. Thank you so much for joining on this Friday afternoon. Hope you have some wild weekend plans ahead of you. Yesterday, we learned of a prisoner swap, a historic one, because it was the largest one since the Cold War. We learned from President Biden and President in Training, Kamala, of this large prisoner swap. It consisted of 16 Western prisoners who were released by Moscow in exchange for 8 Russian nationals released by the U.S. and its allies. Here's Joe Biden yesterday afternoon making the announcement.
During the transition, I instructed our national security team to dig into all the cases of hostages being wrongfully detained, which were inherently, we inherit them from the prior administration.
So whatever you made sense of that, we had to do some more digging to get the details out of this. He said, I think Biden's tried to say we inherited the hostages from the last administration, even though that's a lie. 2 of the 3 prisoners were taken under Joe Biden while he was president. We learned that we received Evan Gershkovich, a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Paul Whelan, former U.S. Marine, and Russian-American journalist Alsu Kurmasheva. But we don't know too much about what we gave back in return. And here to make sense of that with me is John Daniel Davidson. He's a senior editor at the Federalist, and he joins me on the phone right now. John, thank you so much for joining this afternoon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. So this was a historic deal based on the large scale of the prisoners involved. What are we learning since the announcement yesterday? Who are these prisoners that we've returned in exchange?
Yeah, essentially, this was a very lopsided swap. The 8 Russian nationals that were returned to Moscow as part of this deal were not journalists or political dissidents or activists. They were hardened criminals. One of them is an assassin who shot and killed a Chechnyan separatist in Berlin in broad daylight in 2019. Some others were hackers, cyber hackers, who were in prison for trying to steal U.S. military industrial secrets from U.S. companies. and others were spies, bona fide, FSB, that's the Russia's interior domestic intelligence service. They were foreign spies that were embedded in other countries and got caught. So we gave back to Russia, real assassin spies and cyber hackers in exchange for our people, and those. We can celebrate the fact that 3 Americans are back now in our home country, and they were wrongfully imprisoned. But we have to recognize how lopsided this trade was and understand what the implications are.
Yeah, of course. And it seems to be a trend with this administration, exchanging hardened criminals for Americans who are no such thing. Yes, it's great we have Evan Gershkovich home and Paul Whelan and the Russian-American journalist. But the prisoners that released, them going back to Russia, does that put our national security at further risk? Why does Vladimir Putin want these guys back so badly? Could that possibly be a way to hurt our national security?
Well, yeah. I mean, the reason a lot of these people were in prison in the first place is because they were trying to steal military secrets. They were infiltrating U.S. companies that have major defense contracts and trying to get that information back into the hands of the Kremlin. So, and in the case of the assassin, at the time that this guy was convicted, I think in 2021, Putin himself made a comment about how, he belongs back in Russia and that he's been wrongfully imprisoned, wrongfully accused. So these are people that Putin and the Kremlin handpicked that they would like to have back. It's very reminiscent of the deal that the Biden administration did earlier in Biden's term, exchanging a notorious Russian arms dealer in exchange for the WNBA player Brittany Greer. Totally lopsided exchange. Right. That very, very well arguably does make the world a less safe place, and certainly doesn't serve the interests of U.S. national security.
Yeah, and trading Bergdahl in the Obama administration.
Yes.
I was just reminded of that. We have quite a history of appeasing Putin's and his demands with the Democrat in power at the president. Now, a trade like this, obviously the thought would be, well, why wouldn't Putin just continue to kidnap and imprison Americans, innocent Americans, in order to get more of his hardened criminals returned back to Russia in the future? It seems as if Biden appeasing Vladimir Putin right now only encourages him to take more prisoners in the future. Wouldn't that be a concern if you're an American or someone in the administration right now?
Yeah, well, that's certainly the logical conclusion that any reasonable person would come to, is that kidnapping and arresting and holding hostage American citizens or nationals of American allied countries actually pays off. And, arguably that's what Putin did here. He wanted to get these people back, and so he went about sort of collecting hostages and then used them as bargaining chips to get his own operatives out, and it's a very obvious playbook, and there's no reason to think that it won't happen again, and that it may happen with other countries too. Russia obviously, is very sophisticated in this regard, but it's something that other countries conceivably could engage in as well, knowing that they have an administration in Washington that's willing to make these kinds of deals.
Of course. And one of the things I'm thinking about as we approach the election in November is the timing of all this. Why now? Why is all of a sudden this is happening now? Biden and Kamala Harris, they'll obviously celebrate this as a victory, and they should, in the sense that we do have Americans back home in America. But I'm thinking that from Vladimir Putin's point of view, if you're Vladimir Putin, you probably want Kamala Harris to be elected as the next president of the United States. Do you think there was any thought process of his be like, let's give this administration a political victory as we approach November? Maybe this will boost their polls. Maybe this will help Kamala Harris get into office. Do you think there could be anything behind that thought?
Sure, there may well be. I mean, again, it's certainly reasonable to suppose that was part of Putin's thinking. But it's also the case that Biden and Harris desperately want some sort of, foreign policy win, something that they can point to going into the general election campaign season, where they can say that they delivered, this or that concrete result, and they brought our hostages home. And so, it's reasonable to think that Putin was aware of the fact that they are kind of desperate on that front, that they really need to have something they can point to, because honestly, Joe Biden's foreign policy record is an absolute disaster, from Afghanistan to Ukraine to the war in the Middle East right now. They can't really point to anything that they've touched that hasn't basically turned into war and into a debacle. So knowing that they're desperate, Putin may have taken advantage of that.
Yeah, of course. And finally, how much do you think Kamala Harris was involved in this negotiations? The White House suggests that she was quite involved in getting these prisoners back home. Who is in charge? I mean, is it Joe Biden? Is it Kamala Harris? Who's actually negotiating on these phone calls to get these prisoners home? Who do you think it is?
I think it's some nameless person at the CIA. It's not Kamala Harris. Give me a break. The idea of Kamala Harris engaging or negotiating on the phone with Putin or Lavrov or any one of these high-ranking Russian officials is just laughable. That, they may be bad guys, and they are bad guys, but they're serious people, and they're competent, and I don't think that they would be intimidated or swayed or even take seriously somebody as phony and fake and empty as Kamala Harris. And I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, absolutely. Phony is the key word. Well, John Daniel Davidson, thank you so much for joining me today. Senior editor at the Federalist. Check out his column on this today. Appreciate you joining, and have a great rest of the weekend, okay?
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, John. I was reading more about this story in the Wall Street Journal, and someone who's not getting enough credit for this is probably Tucker Carlson. Remember back in February, he interviewed Vladimir Putin. He took a whole lot of heat from it, especially from the left. Why would we ever platform, this dictator Vladimir Putin? But it seems that if he played quite a role in pushing for the release of Evan Gershkovich. From the Washington Post, just as Berlin and Washington outlined how a deal would work, Moscow was dealing with an unexpected new person negotiating, Tucker Carlson. The former Fox News host was hammering out terms for an interview with Putin for his new straight-to-social media talk show. Carlson told the president's aides that he planned to request Putin free Gershkovich on the spot during the interview. If all went well, he would take Evan home on his flight. An official close to Putin told the TV host it would be a great idea and could generate a positive response. Further, it says, near the end of the 2-hour conversation, Carlson pushed his point. This guy is obviously not a spy. He's just a kid. He's being held hostage in exchange. Maybe it degrades Russia to do that. So Putin demurred. He specifically specified publicly for the first time the person he wanted in return, a person serving a sentence in an allied country of the U.S., he said, leaning forward with an eyebrow arched. After the interview, as Putin led Carlson on a tour of the Kremlin that stretched near midnight, the TV commentator returned their conversation to Gershkovich. Why are you doing this? It's hurting you, Carlson said to Putin. Putin complained the problem lay in Washington. Russia had made its demand for the reporter clear, he said. Putin lamented that America didn't do more to bring home its alleged spies. The same day the interview aired, chalking up 200 million views, Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, flew into Washington, headed straight to the Oval Office with no note-takers and no aides. At the end of an hour-long meeting with Biden, the leaders formally agreed. Their countries would explore Krasikov as the centerpiece of the deal that would free numerous prisoners, including Navalny, Gershkovich, and former Marine Whelan. So Tucker Carlson, by bringing this up to Putin, really started to get the wheels turning on this. The Chancellor of Germany flew to the U.S. and started speaking to Biden about this. We need to get this done. So here's a flashback to Tucker Carlson. And you may remember this was February 6th. He asked if Putin would release Evan Gershkovich.
Evan Gershkovich, who's the Wall Street Journal reporter, he's 32, and he's been in prison for almost a year. This is a huge story in the United States, and I just want to ask you directly, without getting into the details of it or your version of what happened, if as a sign of your decency, you would be willing to release him to us and we'll bring him back to the United States.
Мы столько сделали жестов доброй воли, что, мне кажется, мы исчерпали все лимиты.
We have done so many gestures of goodwill out of decency that I think we have run out of them.
Ни разу не ответил.
We have never seen anyone reciprocate to us in a similar manner. However, in theory, we can say that we do not rule out that we can do that.
All right, there you go. That may have gotten the wheels rolling on this prisoner exchange. Another thing I found interesting in the Wall Street Journal, Andrew Stiles pointed out, Gershkovich's mother, named Ella, recalled a time when she was been pushing to get her son Evan released for quite a while, and it took her going to a greeting line with Joe Biden to really push the issue. And it only took Antony Blinken to be next to her, Antony Blinken, to overhear it to really set the wheels in motion again. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Ella was at her second White House Correspondents' Dinner that month and joined Biden's handshake line to deliver another back-channel message, this time with more specificity. An official from Karsten's office had told her to ask Biden to call the German leader to move things forward. And one of her sources had told her that it would be bad for Scholz to back out after making a commitment. To make her case, she'd only have seconds. She said, "We need more," to the president. "Can you please call Chancellor Scholz?" Biden said he had made that call. Blinken, standing next to the president, looked down, then gently clarified, saying that he would make the call. "I promise, I promise, I promise," Biden said before the handshake line moved on. So there we go again. So Joe Biden, who's out of it, as we know, he's a living corpse, was greeting Gershkovich's mother, kind of blew her off, yes, whatever, but as it was Tony Blinken who was standing next to him who had to take control of the entire situation. And without people around Joe Biden and these nameless people in the CIA and the deep state government industries, none of this would have gotten done. None of it would have gotten done. So they'll take their victory lap for now. Putin will hope that they take their victory lap, hope they increase in the polls, because he would love nothing more than for Kamala Harris to win this next election. All right, nicknames for Kamala. I think that's what I'm leaning towards right now, or coming in on the phones. Leo in Colorado Springs. My friend Leo is on line one. He's got an idea for nicknames for Kamala. Leo, what you got?
Corey, you sound great, buddy.
You're the man. Thank you.
In the seat. Yes, sir. I was telling the call screener, I Googled it, and I said camel lips, because if you look at a picture of camel lips, they're all over the place. And if they could speak, it would probably, spew out the stuff that she spits out. So I thought that was kind of apropos for her.
It's a tough visual right now, but I see it. It, Leo, and I see where you're going with. Yeah.
Yep. But thanks, Corey. Enjoy the show.
I appreciate that, Leo. Hey, by the way, when you call in, and Leo is a good sport, he'll appreciate this. I can rip on him for a second. Vince and I always look at each other, being that I always answer the phones. I'm the guy, Vince calling a show. Can I get your name and city you're calling from? And then I put you on hold and I bring you over. Anytime a caller gets through to Vince and he says, "As I told your call screener," we look at each other and roll our eyes. There's really no need to tell me that or Vince that, just for future reference. He knows you told me that because I typed it in the screen, and you don't need to double up. Leo, I appreciate you always. Coming up next, we got Sean Kennedy. We're going to talk about crime in Virginia. Migrant crime. What the heck's going on?